الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. My dear brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you today? Good, mashallah. I see very nice faces, mashallah. Barakallahu feekum wa jazakumullah khairan for the attending the lesson, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in knowledge, and we ask Him to guide us to the best of the Sunnat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those who act upon the Kitab, the Quran and Sunnah, and we ask Him to include us amongst those who are in the chain, the noble chain of the knowledge, and we ask Him to make us benefit from every single ayah we learned and every single hadith we learned, and we ask Him to help us, to guide us, and to shower His mercy upon us, and we ask Him to end our life in a good way. Husn al-Khatimah. Ameen. As we know, last week we started the new lesson, the lesson of fiqh, or fiqh al-ibadat, the fiqh of worship. And fiqh al-ibadat always starts with the tahara, with the cleansing, with the purification. And as we know, if someone he's not tahir, then he's not allowed to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is not allowed to do the duties or his duty towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether it's praying or any worship, except dhikr. Dhikr you can do like istighfar, or you can do even you are not tahir. If you have whether the minor incident, al-hadath al-asghar or al-hadath al-akbar, you can make istighfar, or like adhkar al-layl, adhkar al-sabah al-masa, the morning prayers and the evening prayers, or when you sleep also you can do the adhkar while you have the minor or the major incident, al-hadath al-akbar or al-hadath al-asghar. So you can do the adhkar. And you can even recite Quran from your heart. From your heart you can recite Quran while you have the major incident, al-hadath al-akbar. Al-hadath al-akbar. Al-hadath al-akbar, as we know, needs to be lifted by ghusl, by a shower. And al-hadath al-asghar needs to be lifted by wudu. Al-hadath al-asghar, if someone passes wind, or he goes to toilet to relieve himself, so he needs to do ghusl if he wants to pray, or he wants to do tawaf. So you need to have wudu. And last time we talked about a few things. We talked about the asl, the solution, which is is pure and also purifies. Yeah, the only solution which is pure and purifies at the same time. Because tahir wa mutahhir. Tahir means pure, means you can drink it, you can, yeah. And mutahhir means to use it to purify yourself, like to make wudu or to make ghusl. That's the to purify, means mutahhir, yeah. And the asal, we said the water. That's the first thing, yeah. And if we don't, like, if there is no water, like you are in a desert, or even at home you don't have water, so you can then you go to tayammum. You go to tayammum, which is you can use sand or stone, And last week also I gave you homework. I don't know whether you do it or not. You did it or not. Have you done the homework? Your homework? The homework. You were not here. So it's okay. For you, you are safe. Brother, also, you are safe. You are not here. Brother Nasr, he was not here. So, but all of you, you were here. Yeah, last week I gave you homework. Do you remember the homework?
Actually, no. What was the homework? The hadith?
Huh?
Remembering
The names of
the seven?
the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all his like fathers, like the Ibn.
That's one homework, yes. To know the name of the Prophet ﷺ. Yeah? And,
Talking about the seven, like the most narrated, those who narrated the most.
Yeah, المكثرين.
Okay.
الرواة المكثرين. Those who narrated the most of the hadith. Seven, they are seven. The names and the number of the hadith. And also, another thing, the third one is العشرة المبشرون بالجنة. The 10 Sahaba who had the good tidings from the Prophet ﷺ that they will be in paradise, in Jannah. 10 people. As we know, when we say 10 people, they are not only 10, they are more than 10, but this is in one hadith. One hadith included the 10 people. Yeah? But there are a lot of Sahaba who had the good tidings. They had the bushra from the Prophet ﷺ that they will be in paradise. Like, you know, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. The one he said, O Prophet of Allah, make dua that I will be one of them. And he said, you are one of them. La ilaha illallah. Who can remind me of the name? Yeah, Sahaba, of course. You know, okay, let me define the Sahaba, the name Sahabi, yeah? Sahabi, the one who met the Prophet ﷺ and he was a Muslim. The one who met the Prophet ﷺ, he saw him and he was a Muslim at that time. Then he is a Sahabi. He is Sahabi and he died as a Muslim. Yeah? So he met the Prophet ﷺ, means he embraced Islam and he met the Prophet ﷺ. He saw the Prophet ﷺ, yeah? And he died on Islam. So that's the Sahabi. Anyone met the Prophet ﷺ while he's a Muslim and he died as a Muslim, so he's a Sahabi. That's okay. So yes, سبقك بها عكاشة. عكاشة is the one of them. When the Prophet ﷺ, he was talking about those who enter paradise without asking, or without hisab. Yeah, you know, without hisab. Yeah, means without sorry, without being questioned. Yes. Yeah. So they will enter paradise. And Ukasha, he said, "O Prophet of Allah, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like to be one of them." And he said, you are one of them. And then another Sahabi, he stood and he said, oh, the Prophet asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be one of them, for me to be one of them, and he said, سَبَقَكَ بِهَا عُكَاشَةٌ. Means Ukasha was before you. Ukasha was before you.
Also, there is another hadith. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned that while I was in Jannah, I hear a footstep.
Yes.
Bilal.
Bilal, yes. There are many Sahaba, as I said, there are many Sahaba who had the good tidings that they will be in paradise. But I'm talking about Ashra, this is in one hadith. Ashra, this is in one hadith. So I'm going to tell you the 10 because you didn't do your homework. Please do your homework, inshallah. It's very easy. You go to the internet. You have it now. But I want you to have it in your mind, in your memory. Yeah? No, 10. The 10 Sahaba who had the good tidings. Ashra al-Mubashiruna bil-Jannah. Yeah?
Did you mention last time the 10 names?
No, I didn't mention. I mentioned 4. I said to you 4, and your homework is to complete the 10. Means another 6. And I said the 4, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali. That's the 4th, yeah? So, and then after Abu Bakr and Uthman, Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Ali, Az-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, Talha ibn Ubaidillah, and Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, and Abdurrahman ibn Auf, and Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, and Sa'id ibn Zayd. Sa'id ibn Zayd. How many now? 10, wala? So again, the 4 Khalifa, Abu Bakr, starting from the Abu Bakr, the first man to embrace Islam after Prophet Muhammad. Yeah, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Then Umar ibn al-Khattab. We know al-Faruq. Then Uthman, Dhun Nurayn. Uthman, radiyallahu anhum ajma'een. Dhun Nurayn. And the son of law, the son-in-law of the Prophet Muhammad. The son-in-law of the Prophet Muhammad. Uthman, he married 2 daughters of the Prophet Muhammad. The first daughter then died, and then he got married to the second one, and the Prophet and then she died, and then the Prophet he said, if I had another daughter, I would marry her to Uthman. Imagine how Prophet Muhammad loves his Sahaba, his companion. Yeah. So he said, if I had another daughter, I would marry her to Uthman. So he married 2 of his daughters. Okay? And we know Uthman he spent like his money. He was wealthy person. He was very rich, yeah? But his wealth was not in his heart. It was in his hand. It was in his hand. You know the difference between your wealth in your hand and your heart? When your wealth in your heart, you cannot spend it. You love it. You don't want it to be finished. Yeah, you cannot spend it for the sake of Allah. Yeah, you're counting every night maybe. Yeah. But if it's in your hand, it means you spread it. You spread for the sake of Allah. You spend it. Uthman, he did a lot for the Muslims. Yeah, he bought a wall of water. Yeah, and he bought a piece of land for the extension of the mosque of the Prophet Muhammad. He did a lot of things, and he provided the provision of the whole army in Tabuk. You know Tabuk, Ghazwat Tabuk. He provided everything, weapons, animals like camels and horses and even the duru', the shields, everything he provided, the food, everything he provided the whole army. He supported the whole army for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then when the Prophet ﷺ, he said, what did he say? He said, ما ضر عثمان ما فعل بعد اليوم. Means nothing will harm Uthman after this day. Nothing will harm him after this day. So that's the stats of Uthman radiallahu anhu, Dhun Nurayn. Why he was called the Nurayn? Because he had two daughters of the Prophet ﷺ. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, he was called the Nurayn. Okay, like the two, the one who had the two lights or Nurayn. Yeah. So that's Uthman. And Abu Bakr, he spent all his wealth for the sake of Allah. He spent all his wealth for the sake of Allah. When he brought all his wealth to Prophet ﷺ in a case, yeah, and he put it like in front of Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "What did you leave for your family?" He said, "I left Allah and Rasulah." Yeah, he brought everything, all his wealth, brought it for the sake of Allah. He wanted to spend it on da'wah, to call people to Islam. And Umar, he spent, Umar wa ma adraka ma Umar al-Faruq, yeah, when he embraced Islam, in the beginning, the da'wah was like silent, was silent. It was not like loud. The da'wah was not jahriya, was not loud like the Prophet ﷺ, he used to call people like secretly, yeah, and bring them to the Dar al-Arqam, Ibn Abi al-Arqam. Al-Arqam ibn al-Arqam, he had a house, and the Prophet ﷺ and his companion, they used to gather in that house, because in the beginning, because the Quraysh, they were like, when Islam appeared and the Prophet ﷺ started to call people to Islam, then Quraysh started to make it very hard for the Prophet ﷺ and his companion, yeah, and they make everything tight on them. So they used to go to meet the Sahaba, few Sahaba, yeah. They used to go when someone embraces Islam, they take him to Dar al-Arqam ibn Abi al-Arqam. This is and you know how old was he? He was very young at the Al-Arqam. He was very, very young at that time. I can't remember now the age, but he was very young, in his 20, I think, he was very young. But he gave his house for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was brave. He was brave enough to encourage the Muslims to come to meet the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his house. Because if Quraysh knew, then they would destroy his houses, like what they do now, like in some countries, yeah, they demolish their houses and they kill them, yeah. So Abu Bakr, then Umar, and when Umar embraced Islam, as we said, people came out and they said, now Umar, he said, why you are scared? Aren't we on the truth, on haqq? Then the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Bilal, he said, why we are hiding? We should go out. That's Umar, he's strong, yeah. And as we know, Umar, the Prophet ﷺ, he used to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that one of the Umarain to embrace Islam, Umar ibn al-Khattab or Umar ibn al-Hakam, Abu Jahl, la'anahu Allah, Abu Jahl. And because both of them, they were very strong, and the tribe of Quraysh, they used to respect them. And Umar was ambassador of Quraysh. He was an ambassador of Quraysh because his mentality, he was educated also. He used to read and write, Umar, yeah. And so the Quraysh, when they have any problem with the other tribes, they send Umar to negotiate and to speak to other tribes. So he was the ambassador of Quraysh because his personality, he's very, very strong, and he was talkative, yeah, and he had knowledge. So, and he has politics, yeah, like siyasi, would say, yeah, he's a politician, like he knows how to speak. He knows how to speak. So he was the ambassador of Quraysh in the time before Islam. And when he embraced Islam, the da'wah started to, like the Sahaba, they used to come out and they went to Kaaba. And they started to call people. And then, as we know, Quraysh started to torture some of the Sahaba, those who have no, like they were poor and they were weak. Yeah, weak not in faith, weak in status. Like their status was not high, yeah, and no one was protecting them. So they used to torture like Bilal radiallahu anhu and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, yeah, and a lot of Sahaba they were, and as we know, Ammar ibn Yasir and his wife Sumayya, the first martyr of Islam, Sumayya, she was killed for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we know, and Yasir also, he was killed, and Ammar, he was tortured until even he says like he denounced Islam. He denounced, but not in his heart, on his tongue. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, if they come back to you, Ammar, then do it again, because it wasn't in his heart, yeah, and like from his tongue. So like to save himself from the kuffar, because they killed his mom, his mother, and they killed his father, and they tortured him a lot. So in front of him, they were killed. Now, so we said Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali. And Ali was the first boy to embrace Islam. Ali was the third, the first one to embrace Islam was Abu Bakr, then Khadija, then Ali. Ali from the youth, yeah, because he was living with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was living with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As we know, Abu Talib, he had a lot of children, and he didn't have enough money. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said to his uncle, "Can I take Ali with me to look after him?" And yeah, because as we know, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, before the prophethood, he was married to Khadija, and he was, Khadija, as we know, she was radiyallahu anha, may Allah be pleased with her. She was honored. She was honored, and she was wealthy, and she was she had very good status in Quraysh. Yeah. So Ali was looked after by the Prophet ﷺ. He was living with him. So when the Prophet ﷺ got the message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he came to Khadija, and Khadija embraced Islam, and also called Ali. And then Ali, he said, let me ask Abu Talib, let me ask my father. Then he came back and he said, I don't want to, there is no point to ask. This is haqq, there is no point to ask. Inshallah, we will talk about them, about their biography, inshallah, in the future. And the fifth one is Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ. The cousin of the Prophet ﷺ. Yeah, he is the son of Safiya bint Abdul Muttalib, Zubayr ibn al-Awwam. Yeah, and after Zubayr is Talha ibn Ubaidillah. As we know, Talha on Uhud, in Ghazwat Uhud, he protected the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ, he went on his back, to get, to avoid from the kuffar, as we know in Ghazwat Uhud, and he said to Talha, wajabat means inshallah you will be in paradise. Yeah. And after Talha ibn Ubaidillah, Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, Amin al-Ummah, as we know, the Prophet ﷺ, he gave him the name of Amin al-Ummah, the trustee of the Ummah. As we know, the Prophet ﷺ, he gave the Sahaba, each one he gave him a name, because that he was in that, for example, Ubay ibn Ka'b, he was the reciter of the Ummah. Ubay ibn Ka'b, he was the Qari al-Ummah, the reciter of the Ummah. Yeah. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was faqih, he was a scholar. Mu'adh ibn Jabal, he was in fiqh also. Zayd, he was in ilm al-fara'id, the inheritance, the science of the inheritance. زيد, yeah, وأفرادكم زيد, yeah, معاذ أفقههم, yeah. So the Sahaba, each one had a title, yeah, was given by the Prophet ﷺ, was given to them by the Prophet ﷺ. So and as we know, Zubayr ibn Awam, he had Hawari Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hawari means the apostle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As we know, Hawari, Isa had Hawari, and yeah, so it means the supporter or the army of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the, like, means he is the how can I say Hawari, like supporter, or the army or the of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Zubayr ibn Awam, he was very strong.
Can we call the guard?
Huh?
Personal guard, personal guard.
Sorry?
Personal guard or personal.
Yes, exactly. Yes, like the guards. Yes, exactly. Okay, so Zubayr ibn Awam, because he was very strong and he was young at that time, but he was very strong and he was very brave, and he was the first one to use the I think the sword or the arrow, but inshallah we'll check it again. Then we said Zubayr ibn Awam, Talha ibn Ubaidillah, then Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, Amin al-Ummah, and he said لكل, the Prophet ﷺ, he said every nation has a trustee, and the trustee of this ummah is Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah. Okay, and then Abdurrahman ibn Auf. Abdurrahman ibn Auf also, he was one of the early Sahaba, yeah, early Muslims, yeah, and he was wealthy also. He was very rich man, and he was a trader, yeah. And because Abdurrahman ibn Auf was from Muhajirin, yeah, and when they migrated to Medina, they left everything. They left their families, they left their wealth, they left everything. Quraysh, they took everything from them when they migrated to Medina. Some of the Sahaba, early Sahaba, they migrated to Habasha, to Abyssinia, to Ethiopia, yeah, because there was a king, and this king is just, yeah, he used to deal with justice. Najashi, his name is the Najashi, and as we know, Najashi then embraced Islam, and he was one of the the Prophet, even the Prophet ﷺ, he prayed Salatul Ghaib, the absence prayers, the Salatul Janaza, the funeral, yeah, and when someone dies like far, yeah, from like another city or another country, and he's like maybe he's a leader or he's a famous, or sometimes nobody prays on him, yeah, prays the funeral prayer, so the people has to pray Salatul Ghaib. It's called Salatul Ghaib. And the Prophet ﷺ, he did Salatul Ghaib on Najashi, radiyallahu anhu, warda Allah. And some of the scholars, they consider Najashi is Sahabi, although he hasn't seen the Prophet ﷺ, but they consider him as Sahabi, Najashi. But there is not agreed upon, but it's controversial. Yes. Yes.
Just a quick question. He reverted.
Yeah, of course he reverted. Of course, yeah, he embraced Islam. Yeah, he reverted to Islam, and he was the king of Abyssinia, and he was on the deen of Isa alayhi salam. Yeah.
But he was hiding his Islam.
Yeah, after, yes. Inshallah, and then we said Abdurrahman ibn Auf, and Abdurrahman ibn Auf, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas ibn Khalid Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was the cousin of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and as we know, he said the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the hadith about Sa'd ibn Waqqas. He said, هذا خالي, this is my uncle. فليرني أحدكم خاله. يعني he was proud of him. He was proud of Sa'd ibn Waqqas, and he said, "This is my uncle. Show me like your uncles, or in that, in that sense." So Sa'd ibn Waqqas, then Sa'id ibn Zayd, one of those people who took part in collecting the Quran, Sa'id ibn Zayd, and he was one of the half Huffaz, Sa'id ibn Zayd, and he was, as we know, Sa'id ibn Zayd was he was married to Bint al-Khattab, yani the sister of Umar ibn Khattab. He was married to sister of Umar al-Khattab, Sa'id ibn Zayd. So those 10 people, they had good tidings from the Prophet ﷺ that they are in paradise. They will be in paradise. And this is in one hadith, yeah? Those Sahaba, the 10. And there are others who had the good tidings from the Prophet ﷺ, but it was like in different hadith, inshallah. And when like Ukasha, like Bilal, Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, Ja'far al-Tayyar, and Abdullah ibn Rawaha, and the third one who was with them, there were three. Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, Zayd ibn Thabit, Zayd ibn Haritha, وزيد بن حارثة وعبد الله بن رواحة وجعفر ibn Abi Talib. They were in a battle, and three of them they were killed in that battle, and they are in paradise. They are in the paradise. There are many hadith about other Sahabas. So now we know the 10 people, yeah, and we know the 7 people who had the more knowledge. So we said Abu Hurairah, the first one. Abu Hurairah, how many hadith he narrated?
5,372.
74. Yes, 74. And as I promised you, I'm gonna give you like short biography about Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, wardahu Allah, because he's one of the greatest Sahaba. Abu Hurairah, he narrated most of the hadith, and he had the most knowledge of the Sunnah. And as we know, the Prophet ﷺ made dua for him, and he started to memorize the hadith from the first listening, from the first, like when the Prophet ﷺ, he says the hadith, then he memorizes the hadith, and he will not forget it after the dua. And Abu Hurairah, he's from Yemen, and he's from the Daws. The tribe is called Daws. So, and his name is Abdurrahman ibn Sakhr al-Dawsi. Abdurrahman ibn Sakhr al-Dawsi. And you know the name, he had many names. Yeah? Abdullah, some, you know, in the beginning, his name was Abd Shams. Means the slave of the worshipper of the sun. But then the Prophet ﷺ changed his name to Abdullah, one narration, and to another narration, Abdurrahman. But now he's famous with Abdurrahman ibn Sakhr al-Dawsi. So his name, Abdurrahman ibn Sakhr al-Dawsi. And he embraced Islam before the Hijrah, before the migration of Prophet ﷺ to Medina. So he embraced Islam, and the one who was a reason was he called Abu Hurairah to Islam is a Tufayl ibn Amr. Tufayl ibn Amr, the one who called Abu Hurairah to Islam and embraced Islam before the Hijrah. So he embraced Islam before Hijrah, but then he migrated, because in the time of Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba, they have to, when Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina, then every Muslim has to do migration to the Prophet ﷺ, to Medina, yeah? So he migrated to Medina in in the 7th year of Hijrah, in the 7 years of Hijrah, in Ghazwat Khaybar, when the Muslims were coming back from Ghazwat Khaybar. You know Ghazwat Khaybar, you remember Ghazwat Khaybar? Yeah, Khaybar is a place where some Jews, they were in that, and they were making problems to Muslims, and they had they had covenant with the Muslims, or they had agreement with the Muslims that they will not fight with them, and they will not support any enemy to the Muslims, but they broke that promise. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he went to Khaybar and he conquered Khaybar. And when they coming back, Abu Huraira came in the time of Isha. He said he came in the time of Isha when the Prophet ﷺ was praying Isha, and even he remembered the surah which the Prophet ﷺ recited in Isha. The first rak'ah was Surah Maryam, and in the second rak'ah, Wail lil-Mutaffifin. Wail lil-Mutaffifin. And when he heard Surah Al-Mutaffifin, he said, he felt so sorry about his tribe, because they used to to steal the the scale. They don't weigh the items or properly. They always steal from the scale. Yeah. So he felt so sorry about his people or his family. And then Abu Huraira, he was with the Prophet ﷺ most of the time. He freed his time for the knowledge from the Prophet ﷺ. So he was with him all the time. He was with the Prophet ﷺ all the time, and he had the knowledge from the Prophet ﷺ, and he narrated 5,374 hadith. 5,374 hadith. And he said, no one from the Sahaba had the knowledge from the Prophet ﷺ like him, except one person. Do you know this person? Except he's one person. This person is Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. Because he said, and he gave the reason. He said, no one has the knowledge, more knowledge than me from the Prophet ﷺ except Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. Why? He said, because Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, he was allowed from the Prophet ﷺ to write the hadith. He was allowed to write the hadith. But all the Sahaba were not allowed to write the hadith because the Prophet ﷺ, he was worried to mix it with the Quran, because the Quran is still coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the revelation. So the Prophet ﷺ, he forbid to write the hadith for all the Sahaba except Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, he used to write the hadith. He was allowed from the Prophet ﷺ to write the hadith. So Abu Hurairah, he said, no one had the knowledge, no one has knowledge more than me, except one Sahabi is Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, because he used to write the hadith. And I was not allowed to write the hadith. But Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, why he didn't have because, yes, right. Yes, no problem. Barakallah feek. Wa alaikum salam. Why Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As? I think I mentioned this last week, yeah? Because Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, he used to go in Ghazawat. He used to go with the army, to conquer the countries and cities. Yeah, so he used to make jihad. But Abu Huraira, he stayed with the Prophet ﷺ most all the time to get his knowledge. So he embraced Islam before Hijrah, and he migrated from Yemen to Medina in the 7th year of Hijrah, and when the Muslims were coming back from Khaybar, and he stayed 3 years. So he stayed 3 years with the Prophet ﷺ. Can you imagine? He stayed 3 years with the Prophet ﷺ, and he narrated 5,374. Yeah, and Abu Hurairah, he said, I had two wi'a'an. He had wi'a'ain, two containers of knowledge. Yeah, he said, I gave you only one container. If I give you the other container, maybe the people will start to hit me in the streets, because the fitan. He had also the knowledge of fitan, but he did not he did not mention to the Muslims this, the fitan, hadith al-fitan. So he had wi'a'an or wi'a'ain, two containers of knowledge. Abu Huraira, and even he narrated 5,374 hadith. The Sahaba, they said Abu Akthara Abu Huraira. Akthara Abu means Abu Huraira is narrated a lot, like they were saying it in how can I say it? How can I put it into words? Because he was like telling them a lot, yeah. So they said Akthar Abu Hurairah. Then he said, my brothers from the Muhajirin, they were going to the markets and like making like deals, like because they have to work and get money for their families, to support their families. He said to support their families, yeah. And my brothers from the Ansar, they were staying with their kids, with their families, but me, I was staying with the Prophet ﷺ and had the knowledge from him. I was getting the knowledge from him, so I freed all my time. I jeopardized like my life or everything. Like I did it for the sake of Allah. Of course, the other Sahaba, they did it for the sake of Allah. But also they didn't forget their family. But Abu Hurairah, he did not have a family, and he was one of the people of the Sufa, yeah, the people of Sufa, yeah, Ahlul Sufa or Ahlul Sufa, yeah, as we know, they did not have families. They, like some of them, they left their families in Mecca, and also they did not have enough money because when they migrated to Medina, they left everything in Mecca. So they didn't have enough money. Yeah, so they stayed in the mosque. They stayed in the mosque in the place called the Sufa, in the back of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's mosque, and they were living on the scraps. The scraps like the other Muslims they bring like to the mosque. So they were living. Abu Hurairah, he said like many nights. Abu Hurairah, he did not have food. He was like rolling over the ground because of the hunger. He was rolling over the ground. Can you imagine? He was hungry, and sometimes he said, I used to after the prayer, after Isha prayer, I used to come to I want to make a talk, like discussion with one of the Sahaba, he wanted to ask him maybe to come with him to the house, so he had something to eat from the hunger. Yeah, he was living on few things, like very little. He was living in very little, but look how the knowledge he had, how many hadith he had. And he said, I used to go to Umar, to smile and talk to him. Maybe he would ask me to go back with him and eat something, and come to Abu Bakr and the same. But also Abu Bakr and Umar and the Prophet ﷺ also, one night the Prophet ﷺ came out because he did not anything to eat. He did not have anything to eat. He was so hungry, and he came out, the Prophet ﷺ, from the hunger. He wants to look for something. And then he met Abu Bakr. He said he found Abu Bakr also outside. He said, why you are outside in this night? He said, or Abu Bakr asked actually the Prophet ﷺ, he said, why you are outside, O Prophet of Allah? He said, the one who got you out also got me out. Means the hunger. Yeah, the hunger, yeah. And then Umar came also. Can you imagine? The best people on earth. Yeah, the Prophet ﷺ, he's the best man on the earth, walked on the earth, and his Sahaba after the messengers and the prophets, and they were hungry. They did not have anything to eat. Yeah. So because of the hunger, they came out. Maybe they find something to eat, or someone invites them to their house. So that's the Prophet ﷺ. And as we know, the Prophet ﷺ, when he died, he did not leave anything. Only he left the knowledge, as we know. Yeah, and his dir'a was actually was marhun. I don't know rahan. What's the rahan in? Was like a trust or like what's rahan in Islam? Rahan in English. Rahan.
Like deposited, right?
Like deposit, exactly. Like deposit, yeah. It's like deposit, yeah. He left it like deposit for a Jew because he he had debt from, yeah. The Jew had debt, yeah. Yeah, debt, yeah. So, and he died and he left his dira, his shield was deposit for that debt. Okay? And although, the Ghanaim and everything, and when the army goes for a battle and they had victory and they come with the Ghanaim, and the Prophet ﷺ, he doesn't keep anything. He gives it all for the Muslims, yeah, for the Sahaba, and he distributed all the Ghanaim, yeah. He doesn't leave anything, yeah. So, and the Prophet ﷺ was generous. He was very generous. He was the most generous person, yeah. And especially in Ramadan, hadith, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أجود الناس وكان أجود ما يكون في رمضان حين يلقاه جبريل ويدارسه القرآن. حديث النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بخاري. كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أجود الناس وكان أجود ما يكون في رمضان حين يلقاه جبريل يدارسه القرآن. يعني كان كالريح المرسلة. He was like the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. He was like a scent wind, like so fast wind, yeah. Like he doesn't leave anything. Like he distribute everything like so fast, yeah. He was distributing his wealth or his money like so fast. He was so generous. Abu Huraira. We're going back to Abu Huraira. So, and then Abu Huraira, he lived with the Prophet ﷺ 3 years, and then he died after, of course, the Prophet ﷺ died, and he spent 3 years with the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Huraira. Then Abu Huraira died in 59th of Hijri, and he was 79 years old. When he died, he was 70 years old, and he had around 800 students. The one who took the hadith from him, some of them Sahaba, and some of them Tabi'een. So, some of them Sahaba. They narrated after him. And also he narrated after Umar, after Abu Bakr and Umar and Ubay and Aisha and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, I think. So he narrated after them, yeah? After those Sahaba also. He listened to them, and he got hadith narrated from these Sahaba. Abu Bakr, Umar, Ubay, and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and Zayd ibn Thabit also. So he had also knowledge from the Sahaba also. And Sahaba also, they had knowledge from him and from Aisha as well. So that's the Abu Huraira. So he died in the 59th of Hijri, and he was 79 years old. And as we know, he was one of the great Sahaba, and he was the most knowledgeable of the Sunnah because he narrated a lot of hadith. And that's Abu Huraira, Abdurrahman ibn Sakhr, and he embraced Islam before the Hijrah of Prophet ﷺ. So I think, inshallah, you will keep this information. Now we go back to our subject, which is the fiqh al-tahara, or the fiqh of worship. Okay, we took the rules of the miyah, of the water, yeah, and as we know, the solution which is tahir, which is pure and also mutahhir, which is used to purify the water. And from the ayah from Surah Al-Ma'idah, we said from Surah Al-Ma'idah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يا الذين آمنوا إذا قمتم إلى الصلاة فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم إلى المرافق وامسحوا برؤوسكم وأرجلكم إلى الكعبين وإن كنتم جنبا فطهروا وإن كنتم مرضى أو على سفر أو جاء أحد منكم من الغائط أو لامستم النساء فلم تجدوا ماء فتيمموا. So فلم تجدوا ماء. So the origin rule is the water is used as a mutahhar, as a purification, to purify. So the فلم تجدوا ماء فتيمموا صعيدا طيبا فامسحوا بوجوهكم وأيديكم منه. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يا الذين آمنوا, O who you believed, when you come to pray, or when you stand to pray, فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم means wash your faces and your hands to the marafiq, to the ankles, to the elbow, and وامسحوا برؤوسكم, and wipe your head, and also wash your feet. And if you had janaba, if you had the major incident, or if you had you were not purified, then وإن كنتم جنبا فطهروا, and then purify yourself. If you, for example, someone had the intercourse with his wife, or as we explained last week, then they have to purify themselves. They have to have a shower. وإن كنتم جنبا فطهروا وإن كنتم مرضى, if you were sick, and وإن كنتم مرضى أو على سفر, or you were traveling, or لامستم النساء means you had the intercourse with your wives, أو لامستم النساء, أو لامستم النساء أو جاء أحدكم من الغائط, and if someone he had to relieve himself, or they have to relieve themselves, to go to the toilet, وإذا جاء أحدكم من الغائط وإن كنتم جنبا فطهروا وإن كنتم مرضى أو على سفر أو لامستم النساء أو جاء أحد منكم من الغائط أو البول, فلم تجدوا ماء, and if you don't find water, then make tayammum on the sand or the soil or dust, make tayammum. So that's the alternative. So if means the water is origin for purification, that's the asal. And then if there is no water, then we go to the branch which is tayammum. And if you are sick, you cannot use water, also you can make tayammum, as we mentioned last week about the hadith about Thabit. Leave that one and listen, Habibi, okay, so you can focus, So if you and if you are sick and you cannot use the water, then you can use tayammum. You can use the tayammum. We said you strike on the sand, you strike your hands on the, you say Bismillah, and then you strike your hand on the sand, and then you wipe your faces. And if there is dust, then you can blow them. And there is hadith about if there is dust here and you are worried like it will go on your eyes or on your face, you can blow your hands from the dust, and then you wipe your face and then your hand like this. That's the tayammum, okay? Just one strike, okay? Darba wahid, one strike. There is a hadith for the second strike, but it's weak. The hadith is weak. The hadith is not strong enough, or is not sahih, is weak, ضعيف. Okay, and then we spoke about the and also there is we say the evidence from the Quran. Also, there is another ayah which is in Surah Al-Furqan, yeah, in Surah وأنزلنا من السماء ماء طهورا وأنزلنا من السماء ماء طهورا. And we have sent down from the sky a pure water. A pure water means to use it for to drink it, and also to use it for purification, to wash yourself or to purify yourself. And the hadith Prophet ﷺ قلنا in the dua, the opening dua, when someone starts the prayer, after the takbiratul ihram, there is dua, there is sunnah. The Prophet ﷺ, he used to pause, like short pause. He used to have a short pause to say this dua. اللهم باعد بيني وبين خطاياي كما بعدت بين المشرق والمغرب اللهم نقني من خطاياي كما ينقى الثوب الأبيض من الدنس اللهم اغسلني من خطاياي بالماء والثلج والبرد. There is many hadith, but this is our point here, our evidence here. There is many hadith, many du'as. You can, like سبحانك اللهم بحمدك تبارك اسمك وتعالى جدك ولا إله غيرك. And there is another hadith, Allahu Akbar kabira walhamdulillah kathira wa subhanallah bukratan wa asila. Inshallah, we come to it and when we reach it, inshallah, yeah, and the meaning and also the hadith for those du'as, yeah. But this hadith, Allahumma ba'ad, oh Allah, move me away from my sins. Allahumma ba'ad bayni wa bayna khatay. Oh Allah, move me away from my sins as you moved you moved the east away from the west, yeah. And Allah naqini, oh Allah, purify me from my sins, or purify myself from my sins, like kama yunaqqa, as the white garment is purified from the dirt, yeah. And Allah maghsilni min khatayaya, and wash me, or wash my soul, or wash myself from my sins with water, with snow, بالماء, with water, and thalj, the ice or the snow, and barad, which is ice or hail. You know, the little ice cube, yeah, from there. Sometimes they come from the sky, yeah. So all these you can use them because they are water anyway. They are water, yeah. So you can drink them, and also they are pure, yeah. They are pure, and you can use them for tahara, for shower, or for wudu, And then also we talked about the water of the sea, or the ocean, or the rivers. All the same, yeah. So all the same, the rivers or the oceans or the seas, yeah, or the seas. Okay, the water of these is pure, and also it is used to purify. Yani huwa, and we mentioned the hadith when the Prophet ﷺ was asked about the sea water, and he said, huwa al-hillu, huwa tahuru ma'uh, at-tahuru ma'uh, al-hillu maytatuh, at-tahuru ma'uh. The solution that its water is pure and its dead is lawful, or is halal. It's dead means anything comes from the sea and is dead, like fish or anything from the sea. It has to be from the sea, like lives there. It doesn't live like in the land and sea. No, it has to be in the sea only. They live only in the sea. So it is halal. The mayta, the dead, anything dead from the sea, you find it on the beach or on the shore or whatever. You find it outside, or the water, like sometimes the madd al-jazr. You know what they call it, madd al-jazr. Sometimes the water like increase. Sometimes the water decreases of the sea. What is it called? The al-madd wal-jazr. Yeah, wave. It's called wave, but there is scientific term.
Tide.
Huh?
Tide.
Tide. Yeah, المد والجزر. You know المد والجزر?
Tide rises.
Yes,
Tide.
yes, yeah, exactly. What is it? Tide. Tide, yes. So المد والجزر. Yeah, sometimes you see the sea, like, you find it like in this, here in this way, like maybe here, and like maybe 1 hour later you find it so far, yani it's gone, yeah. So the fish sometimes stays, yeah. And as we know, the fish, if it stays like few minutes, it's gone, it's dead. So if you find it on the beach, you find the fish or anything from the sea, it is halal. It is halal. You can eat it. It is halal. Okay, it's lawful. You can eat it. Yeah. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, the solution, or it is the solution that its water is pure and its dead is lawful or halal. Yeah. And also another hadith. آية لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله آية أحل لكم صيد البحر وطعامه أحل لكم صيد البحر وطعامه means that's when they حرم, like when you go for Hajj or Umrah, you have to have ihram, you have to wear the ihram, yeah, and you start your Umrah or Hajj, yeah, when you on the like the ship, boy, you can also hunt, because when you are in a state of ihram, when you go to Hajj or Umrah and you are in a state of ihram, means you are wearing the ihram, the two pieces, the two garments, the two white garments, you wear them when you go for Umrah or Hajj, yeah. You only have you only wear these two garments. You cannot wear anything, yeah. Nothing is sewed or nothing is surrounded your body, yeah. Muhit and makhit, yeah. So when you go for Hajj or Umrah and you start your Hajj or Umrah, then you have to wear the two pieces, the two white pieces, yeah. It's called ihram, yeah. Then when you are in that state, you cannot hunt, yeah. Not on the sea. In the sea it's okay, yeah. But in the land, yeah, on the ground, you cannot hunt. You cannot eat something was hunted for you or was hunted that time, yeah. Like someone who had ihram and he hunted, then it's not allowed for you to eat it, and it's not allowed for him to eat, and he has to do kafara. If someone hunted while he's in the state of ihram, he has to make kafara, yeah, of what, as much as or as equal as to the bird or animal you hunted, yeah. Like for example, you hunted a pigeon, yeah, and then you have that pigeon. You have to check in the market and see how much. Then you have to give it, yeah, as a charity, because you are not allowed. We are not allowed to do hunting while we are in the state of ihram. Okay, but if you are in the sea, if you are traveling in the sea in a ship, it's allowed for you to hunt like fish or anything, or you find something like on the beach dead, you can eat it also. Yeah, so that's the sea. So the water of the sea is pure. You can use it. You can use it for purification. Also, the rivers and the oceans also same. Okay. Now we reached the قلنا تصحح المياه. Okay. مسائل متعلقة بالماء المستعمل. Now we reached to the used water. Used water. Today or tonight, inshallah, will not take too long. Our lesson is about the masail, about the used water. Can we purify ourselves with used water, and can we make wudu by used water? Of course we can. We can, because first the water, because there is no evidence that when the water is used, we cannot use it again for purification. There is no evidence. And also, there is evidence also from the hadith of Prophet ﷺ, Maymuna radiallahu anha, the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, she said, me and the Prophet ﷺ, we used to do the ghusl together. We used to do the shower, Abdullah and Abdi. We used to do shower together. We used to do shower together. Means that you were using the water together. Means if you are like you and your wife using the water together for shower, it means, and the shower at that time, they didn't have like a shower, luxury, the water is coming from above your head, or, like, or a sauna or whatever. They used to, they have container, like, and to have shower from the container. And the Prophet Maymuna radiallahu anha, she said she used to have shower with the Prophet together from the same container, yeah, from the same container. So it means if someone is using it, means it's used already, yeah, because when they are, both of them, they are using the water, it's used, the water. One of them, like, using, if someone is using the water and using the water, means that water is used already. But if you are using the water by yourself, means that water is not used. Like you brought it and you are using it by yourself. But when there are two, means that water, the state of that water is used. So it's used water. So
is it different than the water that comes off wudu and ghusl? Like the
we will come to it, inshallah. We'll come to it. This is one of the hadith, yeah. And the other hadith also, the hadith from the Sahabiyya اللي هي الربيع بنت معوذ أو الربيع ولي لا إله إلا الله بنت معوذ الربيع بنت معوذ صحابية رضي الله عنها. She narrated that the Prophet ﷺ, he wiped his head with used water from he had water in his hand, means the water was in his hand, like coming out, so he used that water to wipe his head, so it means that's the evidence, that's one of the evidence, so that's the used water. And also the Sahaba, they used to come when the Prophet ﷺ making wudu, they used to to put their hands like this to get the water from his limbs, to collect the water from him, and they used to to purify themselves and to use it for barakah and everything, and they used it. So that's and also another hadith, it's mentioned in Nail al-Awtar. They were in a battle, the Prophet ﷺ and his companion, they were in a battle, and this battle, they did not have, they had very short water, like very little water, and the army, like big army, so they couldn't find water, Then they came to the Prophet ﷺ because the prayer is already started, the time of the prayer entered. So they came to the Prophet ﷺ and they said to him, we don't have water. We only have very little water, And the container was very small, very, very small, Maybe it is not sufficient for us, it's not enough for one person, So he said, bring it to me. And the Prophet ﷺ, he took the water, he drank from it, and then he washed his hand, and then he said he gave it to the whole army. And another narration, they were in a battle, in the same battle, and they found a lady. She was traveling, and she had a container water, of water, and then they came, two Sahaba, I think they account as far as I remember. Two Sahaba, they came and they asked her, so she said, I only have this. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he said, bring her. So, no, they said, the Prophet ﷺ wants to see you. And she said, is that the one who is the Sabi, like Sabi? Sabi, when someone embraces Islam, they called him Sabi. They said yes. So she came because she heard of the Prophet, and she came and she brought the container, like small container, and the the Prophet ﷺ took from the container from here. It's called like qirba. Qirba, I don't know what is it called in English. Qirba is, what's qirba in English? Qirba is like it's like a case, of what?
Water sack. Maybe?
Yeah, water sack. Yeah, water sack. I think. Water sack. Yeah, water sack, and it has very little. Yani water sack for like I don't know how many there were. I don't know how many people there were at that time. I think 300. I can't remember the number. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he drank from it, yeah, and he made wudu, and then he called the people, all the army. They made wudu from that, and then the water did not decrease. The water still same. And then after they finished, they gave the lady her water sack. It's still full. Nothing. No, even it did not decrease even single drop. Yeah. So they gave her her water sack, and also they gave her food, and they gave her food and some goods. Yeah. So and then she saw, like, she was surprised. She was shocked and she was surprised. And then she went back to her people, and she said, I'm gonna tell you about, I saw something like shocking, something surprise, something, yeah, like amazing, something amazed. So she was amazed by what happened to her in front of her. So she embraced Islam, and also some of her people embraced Islam because what the miracle of the Prophet. As we know, the Prophet had many miracles. So that's the gonna used water. Hadith Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the one the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the Sahabiya Rubai' bintu Muawwidh, she said that the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he wiped his head from used water, from the water was in his hand, yeah, from his hand, so it's used water. And also we said about the ghusl from the when and all the mothers of the believers, Maymuna bint al-Harith, also she narrated the hadith that also, and also she narrated, she is the one who narrated the ghusl of the Prophet ﷺ, how the Prophet ﷺ, he did the shower, Maymuna bint al-Harith, and she said she was with him, they had showered together, and she saw him how he made the shower, the ghusl, the complete ghusl, yeah. So they were showering together from the same container. So it is used water as well. And we will come to it, this hadith Maymuna, because that container it had the mixture of ajina, ajina, like dough of the bread or something. Means they used the dough they used that container for making a dough, yeah? Dough, yeah? Ajina, yeah? The mixture of bread, or, yeah? So it was like, you can see the how can I say it? You can see the effect, or the pieces, small pieces in that container, still in that container, and it was mixed with the water. That we will use that hadith also for, like, when the water is mixed with something minor, is not major, like it change the water completely, like the water still you call this water, you name it as a water, you don't name it like as a juice or as another liquid solution, like like a soap, or something else, or drink or something like, but still you name it water, you say this is a water, means the mixture which was in it is not enough to change the water, so it is allowed to use the water for like to purify yourself, and that's from the hadith. We'll come to it inshallah. Okay, so the used water, we talk about it. Gunna, it is, and when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about the water, He said, فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً فَتَيَمَّمُوا. He did not say like when the water is like it changed or like don't use it or yeah. So the water means it goes to the asal, it goes to the origin, because the origin of water is pure. So when something like added to the water or the water was used, it means it goes to the origin. The origin is the water is pure. That's the original rule. The original rule of the water is pure and it is used to purify. Mutahhar, yeah? So it goes to the origin. It goes to the origin rule, which is the water is pure. It means ترجع إلى أصلها. الماء يرجع إلى أصله. أوكي اعتبارا. أوكي قلنا الماء المستعمل وهو المنفصل من عن أعضاء المتوضئ والمغتسل، حكمه حكم الأصل، أي أنه طاهر مطهر، وسواء في ذلك وجد ماء آخر أو لم يجد، أو وسواء في ذلك وجد ماء آخر أو لم يجد، وذلك لما يأتي أولا. The hadith, the one I mentioned about the Prophet ﷺ used his water. The author here is talking about the water which is separated from the limbs of the person who is making wudu. Yeah. So the water is coming out, means it is pure. It is pure. Yeah. You can use it, or someone else can use it to make wudu. Yeah. To make wudu. If you make wudu, some people they make wudu in the container, like what is it called, the container. Yeah, using it. They make wudu inside, yeah? So, you can use it, if there's still water inside, the one is used for wudu, you can use it again as a mutahhar, as a purification, to purify it or to make wudu by it or with it. Okay, and we said the dalil, the evidence. And the second second evidence is فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً. We talk about it also, means it goes to the asl, the origin rule. And then ثالثا اعتبارا بالأصل إذ إنه طاهر التقى بأعضاء المستعمل له وهي طاهرة فلم يفقده ذلك من طهورية شيء. Yes, so when the water, when you make wudu with water, yeah, the water is pure, yeah, is tahir, yeah, and also it meets your limbs, and your limbs are also pure. So pure with pure doesn't mean it is still pure. I mean, the water is still pure because your limbs are pure. It means they are not najis, or they are not dirty, or they are not najis. So your limbs are pure. So the water is not changed; it's still pure. You can use it. Okay. Then we come to the second one. الماء الذي خلطه طاهر. الماء الذي خلطه طاهر means the water which mixed with something is pure, with something else which is pure, also is pure. Yeah, means they mix together. Then this, he said, حكمه أنه باق على أصله طاهر مطهر حتى لو تغير بأن ظهر فيه لون هذا الطاهر أو طعمه أو ريحه بشرط ألا يكون التغير فاحشا يخرجه عن إطلاق اسم الماء عليه، فإن أخرجه عن إطلاق اسم الماء عليه فالماء طاهر فقط ولكنه غير مطهر فلا تصح الطهارة به كما سبق. Okay, so here he's talking about the water which is mixed with something else which is pure. This, yeah, like I said, the hadith in, the Maimuna mentioned, may Allah be pleased with her. She mentioned the Prophet ﷺ and her were showering together, and they were using a container, and this container had pieces of ajeen, of dough, yeah, inside the water, yeah. So he said, the author, he said, or the scholar, the sheikh said here, that the water stays on its origin rule, which is pure, okay. Even the taste, like it changed a little bit, the taste or the color or the smell, yeah, or the smell, because last time you remember I said if the smell or the color or the taste is changed, we cannot use it as a pure, yeah. But here now I will explain it, inshallah. If the taste or the color or the smell are changed, yeah, the water is still pure. But this change is minor, like you still call it water. You don't call it like juice or you call it something else, yeah. The change of the color is very little. It doesn't affect it, yeah. Like a dough, you know the dough when you see the dough in the water, like it changes very little, very like maybe 5% or maybe even 5%. It doesn't, yeah. It doesn't reach 5%, yeah. It's very minor, like, and you still call the water, you call it, or the solution or the liquid, you call it water. You don't call it like a juice or like milk, or yeah, you call you still call it water, because it's still the majority, like 90% or 95% is water. Okay. Okay. But if the dough changed the water, like completely changed it, like 50% or more, or like became like, you don't call it water anymore, you call it maybe milk, or you call it ajeen, or you call it like ajeen. When you say the ajeen is like yellowish, like yellowish or white, like white and yellow, yeah, the ajeen, yeah. So if the water changed like that, then it's not allowed to. It is still tahir, pure, but you cannot use it for purification, to make wudu or to make ghusl, yeah. Okay. فعن أم هاني رضي الله عنها عن أم هاني رضي الله عنها قالت: اغتسل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وميمونة من إناء واحد من قصعة فيها أثر عجين. So Hani radiallahu anha narrated that the Prophet ﷺ, he made a shower with Maymuna, the mother of the believers, his wife. Do you know Maymuna bint al-Harith? You know Maymuna bint al-Harith, yeah? Do you know Maymuna bint al-Harith? Do we know the mothers of the believers? We don't know. Okay. I'm gonna give you a very quick one. The mothers of the believers are 11. The Prophet ﷺ, he got married to 11 wives, yeah? The first one is Khadija. Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her. She was the first wife of the Prophet ﷺ, and he got married to her when he was 25, and she was about 40 years old. And the Prophet ﷺ, he was 25. He was 25 before the prophethood. Yeah? So, because as we know, when did the Prophet ﷺ receive the message from Allah? How old was he? 40 years. Good. 40 years. So, the Prophet ﷺ was married to Khadija when he was 25. Yeah, so he got married because he was working for her, and she saw him like he was trustworthy, and he was trustful, and he was working hard. He was her manager. He was traveling and doing trading. And when she saw him, like he was very trustful and trustworthy, and was like, he had manners, good manners, very good manners. Yeah. So she asked, her cousin to to get married to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as we know, Khadija was one of the best ladies. The hadith. There is hadith. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, كمل من الرجال الكثير ولم يكمل من النساء إلا 4. Yeah, إلا 4. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, from a lot of men were perfected, like they were, they have been perfected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, means kamal, yeah. No one is perfect, but they were like very close to perfection, yeah. But the women, only 4 women who have been perfected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like they were very nice women, yeah. And he said, مريم بنت عمران وآسيا زوج فرعون خديجة بنت خويلد وفاطمة بنت Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah. So these four who like were perfected from the women. Only four they were perfected. Yeah. And Khadija also she spent like her money on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and on Islam. She spent her money. She supported the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from the first day he received the message. When the Prophet ﷺ, you know, before the revelation, before the prophethood, he used to go to Ghar Hira, yeah, to يتحنث means he was like to seclude himself and to what they call it, what is it called,
Meditation.
to meditate, yeah. He used to go to Ghar Hira to meditate and to to be by himself, yeah, and to think about the Khaliq, about the Creator, and about, as we know, the Prophet ﷺ, he never worshipped idols when he was young. Before the Prophet ﷺ, he never drank, he never did anything from the bad things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala perfected him from the beginning. As we know, there is a story when inshallah I will talk about it, inshallah, when he was young and Jibreel he came. I will talk about it, inshallah, because we don't have enough time. We'll talk about it, inshallah. And the hadith was, we were talking about who? About the mothers of the believers, yes. Khadija, and then Khadija bint Khuwaylid, yeah, bint Khuwaylid, and then Sauda bint Zam'ah ibn Qais, the second wife. He got married to her before Hijrah. And Aisha, number 3, Aisha, she was engaged to Prophet ﷺ before Hijrah, and then they commenced the marriage after the Hijrah, 3 years after the Hijrah, in the third year of Hijrah, yeah, when she was 9, because when she was 6, at that time she was 6 when in Mecca, and what's her name? La ilaha illallah. When the Prophet ﷺ, his wife, when his wife died, Khadija radiallahu anha, she left all her children, because you know the children of the Prophet ﷺ, all of them are from Khadija. Al-Qasim, the first one, Qasim, Abdullah, then Ruqayya, Kulthum, and Zainab, Ruqayya, Kulthum, and Fatima. So 4 daughters and 3 sons, but 2 sons from Khadija, 2 sons, Al-Qasim and Abdullah. And Ibrahim, as we know, he had also, the Prophet ﷺ, he had a son called Ibrahim from Maria al-Qibtiyya, from Maria al-Qibtiyya, he had a son. So all his children except Ibrahim were from Khadija. And when Khadija died, you remember in it's called Aam al-Huzn, the year of the sadness. You remember when the Prophet ﷺ, he lost 2 main people, yeah, Khadija and his uncle Abu Talib, yeah. Both of them, they were supporting him a lot, yeah. Although Abu Talib, he was not a believer, but he supported the Prophet ﷺ until he died, yeah. Until Abu Talib died, he was supporting him until he died. And he was protecting him from Quraysh, and he was preventing Quraysh from to harm the Prophet ﷺ. And as we know, Abu Talib was a leader in Quraysh. So he protected the Prophet ﷺ, and he lost him also in called Aam al-Huzn, when the Muslims were boycotted by the kuffar, by Quraysh, in the valley of Abu Talib, in the valley, Sha'ab Abu Talib. They were there, the Muslims, until the Muslims started to eat leaves. Quraysh cut them from everything. They didn't deal with them, they didn't trade with them, they didn't deal with them at all. They didn't support them, they didn't give them food, nothing. So they both cut them, and also they spoke to the other Arabs, around the Mecca, and they boycott them. They didn't provide them with anything. So until the Muslims, they started to eat leaves from the hunger. Yeah. So 3 years in the valley of, and as we know, in those years, Khadija radiallahu anha died, and Abu Talib died in the same year. I think only a few days between them, 1 month I think, or few days between them, died in the same year. So that's why it's called the year of sadness, Aam al-Huzn.
Khadija is also the first person who turned Muslim, right, after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Yes, from the ladies,
No,
Khadija.
the ladies also before Abu Bakr came into Muslim, she was.
No, that's controversial. A lot of scholars, they say Abu Bakr was the first. Yeah, Khadija was the first lady, and Abu Bakr was the first man. And as we know, Abu Bakr was he was very close friend of the Prophet ﷺ. He was very close of the Prophet ﷺ, and so he embraced Islam. He was the first man to embrace Islam, and then also Khadija, first lady, and Ali was the first boy to embrace Islam. So these three people, they were the first people to embrace Islam. Three: Abu Bakr, Khadija, and Ali. Okay, and then after that, as we know, Abu Bakr, when he started to give da'wah to the people, Uthman ibn Affan, he embraced Islam, and Talha, and Abu Bakr, a lot of people, they became they become Muslims on his hands. They became Muslims on his hands. Yeah, Abu Bakr, because Abu Bakr was famous in Quraysh. He was a scholar of lineage. You know lineage? Yeah, nasab, ilm al-nasab. He was ansab shakhs with Quraysh, with the ansab Quraysh, means he had the knowledge of nasab, of lineage, of Quraysh, of the Arabs, all Arabs, yeah. And he was a tajir, he was a trader also. So the people of Quraysh, they used to love him, and he was famous, and so he was very close to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Khadija, and then Sauda bint Zam'a, and then I'm gonna give you only the names, yeah, and we will talk about them inshallah in the future. Khadija, Sauda bint Zam'a ibn Qais, and Aisha ibn Abi Bakr as-Siddiq, Aisha bint Abi Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhum ajma'in, and then Hafsa bint al-Khattab, bint Umar ibn al-Khattab, and then after Hafsa, رملة بنت صخر ابن حرب ابن حرب اللي هم بنت أبي سفيان. رملة حبيبة, it's called حبيبة. Her name is Ramla, the daughter of Abu Sufyan. Okay, she became Muslim before him. As we know, she was married to Ubaydillah ibn Jahash, yeah, and they migrated to Abyssinia, and then what's his name? Ubaydillah ibn Jahash. He left Islam when he migrated to Abyssinia. He left Islam, and then she was widow. So he left Islam in Abyssinia, and then the Prophet ﷺ, he got married to her, and the Uthman ibn Affan, he the one who was her wali, and Najashi, he gave the mahar of what's her name, we're talking about Habiba, yes, yeah. So when she came back from Habasha, the Prophet ﷺ got married to her, and the one who did the dowry is Najashi, gave the dowry for in behalf of the Prophet ﷺ. Yeah.
One question. So Najashi was in his kingdom, right?
Yeah.
So he gave from there before she came to Medina.
Yeah, because Najashi, he became a Muslim after, when Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, they went there, and what's his name? Ja'far ibn Abi Talib and the other group, but Ja'far was the leader, yeah. So they went to Najashi and they wanted to have protection from Quraysh, yeah. So they went there, and then the people of Quraysh heard that their sons or their people, they went from Quraysh, they went to Habasha, migrated to Habasha. So they heard this news. Then they sent some two people to go, and one of them was Amr ibn al-As, and the other one I forgot his name. They went to Habasha and like to
Bring them back.
to bring them back. They went to Najashi, and they said these people, they left and they were, they left their country, and they had a strange message and so and so, and this is against the Christianity, against Isa and this. And then Najashi was, as we know, the Prophet ﷺ described him as a just person. He was just king. He was a just king. Yeah, he used to deal with his people with justice. Yeah, so when the Sahaba explained themselves, they tell about their message, and then Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, he read the Surah Maryam, and then Najashi, he started to cry, and he said there is no difference between what's in the book, our book, and what's in the Quran, and he said is nothing, like very close. And how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described Isa in Surah Maryam, yeah, he read the whole chapter to Najashi, and then he said, you are protected here, you go and live in my country peacefully, and you have the protection from me, so no one can touch you. And then as we know, Ramla Habiba, she was one of them. Habiba was one of them, but her husband, he left Islam, he denounced Islam, and he went to Christianity. Ubaydillah ibn Jahsh, yeah, and then he died as a kafir, he as a murtad, yeah. So Habiba then got married to the Prophet ﷺ. So
Can I
after
ask you one question about regarding the same issue? So when they explain about the Surah Maryam, then the person who came to get them back, they questioned that they're talking about Isa alayhi salam, that
yeah, what you said about Isa, yes,
yeah, that's question asked.
yeah.
Yeah, then he said no, this is wrong. Then he said that between you and us only the difference, but
This line.
the line.
Yes, that means there is no difference. Like, yeah, there's nothing. Yeah. So then he protected them, and they stayed there. Yeah, and maybe in the future we'll talk also about the Najashi and his kingdom there in Abyssinia in the future, inshallah. So Ramla, Habiba, the daughter of Abu Sufyan, and then after that is Zainab bint Jahsh. Zainab bint Jahsh, the daughter of Safiya, the daughter of Safiya. Zainab bint Jahsh, she was the daughter of Safiya, Ammat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So she was his cousin, and as we know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to get married to her, because she was married before the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She was married to Zayd ibn Harith, and Zayd was adopted. And before, like in Islam, in the beginning of Islam, adoption was allowed. Yeah, so he was adopted by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade the adoption. Like he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, "Ud'uhum li abaihim," call them to their fathers. Don't call them like my son, but call them to their fathers. Yeah, they are your brothers in Islam. They are not your sons. Yeah. So Zayd ibn Haritha was married to Zainab bint Jahsh, but they were not at the same level. So then he divorced her, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he wanted like to get married to Zainab, but he didn't want to show the people that he's married to his son, his daughter, because they used to call him the son of Muhammad. Yeah, Zayd ibn Haritha, they used to call him the son of Muhammad. This is like in the beginning of Islam. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbid the adoption, then Zayd was his brother in Islam. Yeah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked the Prophet to get married to Zainab, and he got married to her because of the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فلما قضى زيد منها وطرا زوجناكها in the Quran, Surah Al-Ahzab. Yeah, when Zayd had finished the course, or the finished means the time with his wife Zainab, then we got married here to you. We got married here to you. Why? Because they saw the people, they don't say, oh, he got married to his son's daughter and this. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, "Ud'uhum li abahum." Call them to.
Son's wife.
Hmm?
Son's wife.
Yeah, son's wife, yes. So then after Zainab bint Jahsh is Zainab bint Khuzaymah. Zainab bint Khuzaymah. And then after Zainab bint Khuzaymah, Hind bint Abi Umayyah ibn al-Mughira. This is Salama. Her name is her title or her nickname is Salama. As we know, she was married to Abu Salama, but Abu Salama, he died in one of the battles, yeah, as a shaheed, and then the Prophet ﷺ got married to Salama, and as Salama, as we know, she was one of the scholars, was one of the lady scholars. She narrated also a lot of hadith after the Prophet ﷺ, like Aisha. Aisha was more, but she narrated a lot of hadith, her and Hafsa, yeah, and Maymuna as well. So all the wives of the Prophet ﷺ narrated the hadith after the Prophet ﷺ. And then after what's her name? Hind, Salama, also Maymuna bint al-Harith. Maymuna bint al-Harith. She was the last wife of the Prophet ﷺ. The last lady the Prophet ﷺ got married to her. She was the last one. And she was, at that time, she was Maymuna bint al-Harith. They actually, Al-Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib, he asked the Prophet ﷺ to get married to her because her husband died, and then he encouraged him to get married to her. As we know, Maymuna bint al-Harith, she had sisters. She had Lubaba al-Kubra and Lubaba al-Sughra and Asma bint Umays and Salma bint Umays. These are her sisters. Lubaba al-Kubra and Lubaba al-Sughra are her sisters from father and mother, yeah? And the others are from only mother. Asma bint Umays and Salma bint Umays. Asma bint Umays, as we know, she was married to Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, and Lubaba al-Kubra, she was married to Al-Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib, and Lubaba al-Sughra, she was married to Al-Walid ibn Mughira. She was the mother of Khalid ibn Walid. Yeah, Khalid ibn Walid. So Maymuna is his aunt. She's his aunt. Yeah, and also Abdullah ibn Abbas was also his. Maymuna was his aunt. Khalatuhu. She was Khalta. Khalatuhu means she was the sister of his mother, because Al-Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib was married to Lubaba al-Kubra. He was married to Lubaba al-Kubra, the sister of Maymuna. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said in the ayah, in the Quran, in Surah Al-Talaq, mu'minat, nisa mu'minat and qanitat. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said these ladies, and he called them like Lubaba al-Kubra and Lubaba al-Sughra and Asma bint Umays and Salma bint Umays. These are the nisa mu'minat. Nisa mu'minat. They are female believers, yeah? So they were very nice ladies, and they come from honor lineage, yeah, and they were very good Muslims. They were very good Muslims. And as we know, Maymuna was Aisha radiallahu anha. She said, إنها كانت من أتقانا لله وأوصلنا للرحم. Aisha radiallahu anha described Maymuna as she was one of the like the most fearing of Allah, and also she was the most one of us who were like awsalana, means she kept the ties of the relationship, yeah, means the rahim, yeah. She was very pious woman, as we know, Maymuna bint al-Harith. All the mothers of the believers were pious, but Maymuna, she was like outstanding. She was outstanding, yeah. So these are the wives of the Prophet and the mothers of the believers. There are 11 wives.
We listed 9.
9, really? Okay. Khadija,
Sauda,
Aisha, Hafsa,
Habiba,
then Habiba, Zainab bint Jahsh, Zainab bint Khuzaymah. Did we call Habiba?
yeah, number 5.
Okay, and
Salama, number 8.
Salama, yeah, and no, the what's her name? La ilaha illallah. No, there is another one. What's her name? Safiya bint Huyay ibn Akhtab. Safiya, the daughter of the leader of the Jews, you know. Safiya bint Huyay ibn Akhtab. Yeah. How many now? 10.
9.
Juwayriya?
Juwayriya, yes. Barakallahu fik. Juwayriya, yes.
Maria?
No, Maria, she was not the mothers of the believers, but she was not a wife. She was
Maria and
captive.
Hannah says they were concubines.
Yes. She was one of the captives, and yeah, she was Sariya. Sariya means Sariya, like Usara means she was one of the captives, and the Milk al-Yamin. You know Milk al-Yamin? The owner of the right hand, or yeah, Milk al-Yamin. Yeah, Safiya bint Huyay, yes. Safiya, okay? 11, nah? Okay. So that's and as we know, Safiya, she was the, also she was captive in the Khaybar, in the Ghazwat al-Khaybar, yeah? And when the Muslims had victory upon the Jews, and she was captive, and she was the daughter of the leader of the Jews, Safiya bint Huyay ibn Akhtab. Okay, inshallah, we stop on the. Okay, let me finish this issue. It's only a few. We spoke about the container which has got dough, yeah, and another hadith. This is Ibn Mas'ud. This is Ibn Mas'ud is saying, yes, it is mawquf, but it takes the hukm al-marfu', means, yeah, because it is a rule, and the Sahaba cannot make a rule by themselves. Means he heard it from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yeah. That's when the hadith is mawquf, and this hadith takes the marfu' for like something unseen. If this hadith is talking about something is unseen, this is yakhud. It takes the hukm al-marfu'. It takes the rule of marfu'. Means it is like hadith was narrated after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this hadith, قال ابن مسعود, إذا غسل الجنب رأسه بالخطم أجزأه. والخطم, this is a plant, like is a kind of grass. Yeah, they use the art. They used to use it for it's like shampoo. Yeah, so it has got nice smell. So they used to like to use it for their hair. So and he said أجزاء means if a person washes or his head with the khatmi, means it is allowed. It is allowed. So this khatmi, it is like mixed with the water. If it's mixed with the water, it means it's allowed to use the water. Yeah. And why they using this water? Because this kind of plant or grass, it is like it has good smell. That's why. So next time, inshallah, the next issue, inshallah, we use the ماء الذي خلطه نجاسة حكمه كمال. Means that we will take the water which is mixed with najasa. Next time, inshallah, next lesson, and also, okay, yes, we will finish, inshallah, the rules of the water. It takes maybe another 2 lessons, inshallah. Okay. So أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بارك الله فيكم وجزاكم الله خير.